It can't all be superficial because the superficial shit won't last.
Right.
Same with men, right? Like she's bad, but like as somebody who's dated bad women, after a while she just looks normal to you.
Yeah, facts. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That, and so there's a reason why 9s and 10s very rarely get married. It's because they've. Welcome back to Money, Marriage, and Media. Today, the goal is 1,000 subscribers. We're back where we need to talk. Plain Jane gets married because of her hedonic. Is that how you pronounce it? Treadmill. Let's go.
So you're a very rational person.
I try to be.
Right? Do you feel like your brethren, your fellow counterparts, would think the same way? And to kind of give context to the question, we see a lot on podcasts or even in the comments of some videos that women over 25 who are still single, they're kind of like the leftover women. Something has to be wrong with them. And so they're already coming in with this stigma of what a woman is or is not based on her age. So going back to the question about women who are 28 plus, do you think that is something that is a legitimate concern that we should have, that we have a negative perspective?
That's a great question.
And I'll explain why. The fertility thing aside, I think the main concern, and I'm speaking as somebody who primarily, other than my daughter's mom, every woman I've dated was older than me. What tends to happen with older
Dallin out here being an exception to the rule, right? Just break all the manosphere talking points.
women is they tend to be stuck in their ways. They tend to not be as malleable. They tend to not be as agreeable. Because it's one thing for you to be younger than me and think, by default that I ain't shit. It's a completely different thing for you to be older and wiser than me and think I ain't shit. And I think in a lot of men's experiences, after women cross a certain age threshold, they're not as receptive to critique. They're not as willing to get on your program. She has her career. She's not about to follow you with yours. Right? So when men are thinking from a long-term standpoint, do I want somebody who is going to be my helpmeet, or do I want somebody who's going to be like my older sister, where we're going to clash, So I think from that perspective, I think if you're under 35, you're still good, but you just have to do a little bit more to prove to men that like you're not this beyond reproach, you can't tell me shit, you're a little boy ass woman. Because our default assumption is going to be that. And I think there's some default assumptions, like I talked about earlier, that women have of men that, we as men need to cater to, right? So similarly, most men are going to be like, okay, what's going on?
And I'm really I like his answer, but I'm just going to add to that because we left. I think he left out the fact about most women who are single at that age, the age range that she's talking about, have relied heavily on their beauty as a major attraction trigger for men. But beauty fades. And a lot of times there are, these women in particular have not developed the character side of themselves. So it's like, remember I always say relationships are about balance, right? Well, the attraction triggers are about balance as well. When women are younger, they can lean heavily on their beauty because that's what men typically are attracted to. However, when you want to talk about marriage, because again, that's where the line in the sand is on this side of the camera. We judge by marriages, right? Because most women, the goal is marriage. Most men are not marrying for beauty. you need those soft skills, those relationship skills, the things that are going to balance that man out. You know, remember we always talk about the 6 categories here: fit, feminine, friendly, cooperative, submissive, childless. The average man is looking for 3 to 4 of those categories to be fulfilled by someone he is going to marry. And a lot of times, well, women in that age group who are not married, they're still relying on their beauty and not developing the other skills that are going to be required to maintain a relationship for a lifetime. So, you know, there at some point there has to be a balance that, you know, okay, my beauty is starting to fade. I might want to work on my relationship skills to improve or to balance the equation of attraction. Because yes, younger women are entering the dating market, and because men tend to date men tend to date younger women, that's where you have an imbalance, and you got to balance the equation. You need to bring more to the relationship than just being able to look good. And on the side note, you need to bring more than just cooking and cleaning too, because that's a universal answer. We got to get past that, because that's not a universal answer for guys. The guy's a minimalist. He already knows how to keep his place clean. You're not adding any value like that. You know, guy's a chef. Will you outcook him? Come on, let's find other ways of adding value to the man that you want.
Nobody tried it. You know what I'm saying? What's going on? Mm-hmm. So, in understanding men's perspective and appreciating men's perspective, not necessarily you have to prove yourself, but you have to be mindful of it. He's gonna have questions. You look good, and you did. What's going on? What's happening? Right? And I know women like that where, honestly, it's just that she doesn't want it. That's the only reason it hasn't happened. I know other women, and I think this is the majority, is they want it. But they don't really, really want it. They want it. They want the aesthetic, they want the benefits, but they don't want any of the responsibility that comes along with monogamy or long-term relationship. And that's the only reason.
Want the wedding.
And to your video, she's a runner, she's a track star.
Yeah.
You know, so it comes with self-awareness and being able to articulate it to yourself and to the guy, because he deserves to know. It's a fair. If you've been outside, it's fair to, why you look good and you 35 and nobody, like, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like wanting the wedding but not wanting the marriage,
Come on now.
as they say.
Yeah, I can't make this stuff up.
I think
right?
it's so much more layered than that, though. And it's like, I understand that. I think those are valid things that happen.
Let's peel it back. Let's go.
Because you talked about my video.
High level conversation.
And so, I mean, I think abandonment issues are a very valid thing, right? And I think what is happening with this generation of women, millennials, maybe even a generation before that, is that we're seeing the full after effects of having a broken family dynamic. And so that's different than some of the things that we compare to in the past with our grandparents and things like that. And so one of the characteristics of women who have abandonment issues is that they subconsciously seek men who are emotionally unavailable. So going back to what you were saying about wanting the 6-figure guy who's the asshole versus the nice guy, and you kind of overlook him, I think a lot of that is rooted in what we're seeing as well. So it can't just be discounted as, you know, she doesn't really want it. Maybe she does, but she needs to uncover the reason why she's moving in that way.
I agree completely. From the perspective of the guy, especially the guy who, like most of us, isn't, you know, a psychology nerd. They're gonna stop it. She doesn't really want it.
Like,
right. Especially if I have an alternative woman that does want it and is willing to, because my biggest thing has always been it's value, right? Because Black women at scale understand who they need to become to get a job at Google. They understand who they need to become to get into corporate America, get into HR, get into entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be. And they're willing to contort and conform themselves to the requirements of the industry that they're interested in. But when it comes to a man, it seems to be the case that no, that industry should conform to me. the man should conform to me. And a lot of dudes are saying like, yo, I've done the work. I ain't conforming to shit. Because at the end of the day, why would I conform to you when if somebody pulls out a gun, I'm supposed to jump in front of it for you? So if you're not willing to listen to me, I can't protect you. And it seems to be the case that women who are over a certain threshold are less willing to listen. So for a man who's done all the things to get all the sixes, it doesn't look like a good proposition. So let's use the job analogy. It's part of the reason why some companies now are moving away from hiring tenured people. And they're going towards like college students because they're more malleable.
They come with,
I don't have to
experience. So I dealt with this in a previous career. I had to, hire and train new people. And a lot of times, one of the biggest concerns was when you hire somebody with experience, yeah, they have experience, but it also means they come with bad habits. And a lot of times, having to train people out of their bad habits is problematic, to say the least. Same thing applies to relationships. What he's talking about is that, you go for an older woman. Yeah, there's a good chance that older women tend to come with more trauma. There's no way around that, unfortunately, right? Which means that you're going to, mentally, you probably have more to deal with. Now, depending on what that is, you have to go on a case-by-case basis, obviously, right? And the woman may be offering you enough value to where it's worth it. That's why it's hard to have a general conversation about that, because men in general value different things. So without knowing what most men are going to value out of those 6 categories, that's a hard conversation to speak on. And a one-on-one conversation, yeah, but we're on YouTube, and there's literally hundreds of thousands of people gonna see this. So it's get to know the person first. That's all I can say about that.
For instance, when I worked in banking, the company I was working for started an initiative to actually train people on how to become mortgage loan officers. And one of the instructors told us that some of the more seasoned people in this industry, people who were loan officers in 2008, they're jaded. Yeah. And they have a lot of baked in bad habits that they're unwilling to part with because it worked for them at some point.
I just said.
You guys are a fresh, brand new slate, and we can actually shape you in the way we want you to go. Men see women the exact same way. So if you see value in men and understanding men, you must be willing to compete in, So you can still get a job as a loan officer being old, but you have to show that you're not jaded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can only do that if you see value in that job, aka.
The man. So what are some of the ways that a woman can and should compete for a man?
Oh.
I think
we just talked
one,
about
you have
this.
to identify the type of man you want.
There
and
it
you have
is.
to identify why you want him. Right? And it some of it can be superficial, sure. It can't all be superficial. Because the superficial shit won't last. Right. Same with men, right? Like, she's bad, but like, as somebody who's dated bad women, after a while, she just looks normal to you.
Yeah, facts. Yep. Yeah. And so there's a reason why 9s and 10s very rarely get married. It's because they've been receiving preferential treatment for the majority of their life. Remember, women are born with their value. So when your beauty is to that level extreme, you get used to men just you get used to not having to rely or develop relationship skills because your beauty's been carrying you this whole time. There's some debate that goes with that says that, you still, well, look, you can still get married as a 9 or a 10, but you need to develop some relationship skills. And unfortunately, that requires you to be humbled. Most women who are at that extreme end of the look scale, they're not humble. Can it still happen? Absolutely. Probability is rather a different story, though. And so
Like she, I remember like one of my boys. He's got a Mercedes GT. The nerds and who are watching, they know that car. Like, that shit is fire.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, he was like, man, the last time I remembered that I had this car was when my homeboy asked me to drive it around the block. And I was like, oh shit, that's what I'm pulling up here. But he's been driving it so long, he forgets. So like, you know, to take it deeper, it's called the hedonic treadmill, hedonic adaptation. We are going to get used to how you look. Similarly, the woman, you're going to get used to his beardedness and the whole nine. So are you prioritizing the things that are going to last past that phase of being infatuated with his aesthetic? So once you do that, and once you consolidate your list, your long ass list,
consolidate the list, ladies.
Your list, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Then number one, I think you will start opportunities that you might have entertained before you might not identify them anymore. And opportunities that you might have overlooked before, you might now be able to identify them. There are a lot of women, a good man could be standing right in front of them, they wouldn't know. Mm-hmm. They don't even see him because he's not at least my height or taller.
Translation, you already met your husband and you blew it. We gotta do a better job of raising our kids so that they can understand what it is that you are looking for in a partner. We've got to start highlighting these the skills that take a marriage to work. We need to start highlighting them earlier. So that, another part of that is the vetting process is broken, right? Because men, we know what relationship skills a man is going to need. Or older men, as fathers, we know what skills, relationship skills a man is going to need in order to be successfully married, right? We have more idea of that than women do. Same deal with women; they can see that stuff in other women in a lot of times. Because men, we get caught up in the girl's beauty. She's so fine, and all this other stuff, and that's why I say, a lot of times we're wasting resources when it comes to the vetting processes. Because as guys, your mom is a good judge of character. She's a better judge of character in women than you are. Plain and simple. But a lot of times we don't,
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or he's not wearing whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah.
So I think after that, it's just a matter of continuing to do the work and just priorities, man. That's it. That's really it. Because to your point, you have a Steve. She has a Steve. Mm-hmm. And maybe Steve.
Well, I pause it because Steve is a concept that's localized to we need to talk channel. If he's about to explain it, then I don't need to. So
Steve is for you, maybe he's not. But there's some other Steves that you've been overlooking as well. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a Steve you ran into at a coffee shop, but you were looking at him like, this nigga short. Oh, this nigga, this and that. And you just blocked your blessing.
Okay. Get that 100%.
Yeah, Steve is the guy who was supposed to be, the woman's husband, but she blew it because her expectations were too high. And she missed it. She has an inflated, self-image. She's ranking herself higher in the sexual marketplace than the men in that marketplace would rank her. So her standards are ultra high, and she missed her husband because he didn't meet those high standards. A lot of times what happens is that women will try and swing around on the back end as their value starts to fall and say, oh yeah, Steve's a good guy. He'd make a great husband. What that doesn't take into account is what has Steve been feeling like for the last, 5-10 years after you've been rejecting him this whole time or kept him in the friend zone. A lot of women don't take that into account. That's why I say we got to do a better job of raising our sons and daughters so that we can, that they can actually have their antenna up to look for these things, right? But we also have to make it. If we do a better job of raising them, that means that we're doing a better job of having them trust us to help with the decision of vetting for their potential spouse.
Percent You don't think men do that too, though? And I understand that you guys
Absolutely.
like physical
No, absolutely.
appearance.
Absolutely.
But that's the same thing if a woman is too overweight or if she isn't as curvy as you like. She could be a woman of value in so many other ways. And so I think it's something that we both struggle with.
I would say women more so than men only because
women have
like I
higher
said
standards.
earlier, when we look at where men are going to when they leave this country to find wives, they're not going to places with curvy women.
Mm-hmm.
If men were going to South Africa, I'd be like, you know what, you got it.
Mm-hmm.
Men are going to Thailand.
Yeah, tiny.
What about Brazil? Colombia? I don't. Hey, if you a passport bro in there, sound off of what country that you looking to go to or that you already at. Because every time the passport bros comes up, I see Brazil and Colombia. Every now and then you get somebody who's going to like an Asian country, but nah, mostly it's South America. So I don't know.
Petite women.
Men are going to Taiwan and shit like that. Like we have to, and you know that goes back to gaining an understanding of men. In my gaining an understanding of women, I've realized over the years what women say they want and what they actually want aren't necessarily the same thing. Mm-hmm. For men, who a man would more quickly sleep with versus who he's going to marry, not the same thing.
Right.
No.
Not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I
100%.
think one of the things that we're failing at as a community is I think our women are prioritizing being chosen first instead of being chosen last. Mm-hmm. That sounds counterintuitive as a motherfucker. Mm-hmm. But like you want to be chosen last, not first. Like there was a woman, I think on TikTok, she made a video talking about why do men always settle down with like plain Janes?
Like the gas, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Talk to men, they'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Men will go down in looks to go up in cooperation. Yeah. Reality. Looks fade. That's why we'll do that, because we know that, hey, looks fade. Are you a good mother? Because you can be the baddest woman in the world, but if you're going to be a crappy mom, okay, well, I don't want to waste too much time dealing with you, or I'm not trying to have a family with you.
I'm looking for a grandmother to my future grandchildren.
Yeah.
Not the baddest bitch on the block.
Yeah.
There it is.
I've had the baddest bitch on the block. I know I know what that comes with. I don't want that. That's cool to first. She make my dick hard, but that's not what I want. So again, like, are you playing basketball or are you playing handball?
Great conversation from We Need to Talk. Definitely having high level conversations over there. Guys, if you're new, if you're not familiar with this channel, this brother does one-on-one interviews. But he does it like this all the time. The whole purpose is that, and I agree with him in this message that a lot of times you can get better results when you have a one-on-one conversation with somebody versus doing a whole panel. Don't get me wrong. Panels have their place, right? Because you get different perspectives at the same time, and you can hear a multitude of ideas. But when it comes to actual growth and understanding, one-on-one conversations just hit different. But guys, look, this is great. Like I said, great channel. Go subscribe to We Need to Talk. And I'm gonna say goes to the next time. Peace.